I'm going to share with you some tips to start a wood stove. I'm going to fire this puppy up, but it's not going to be all that easy because everything is completely soaking wet out here today. And it's so humid out, I can't even get my matches. God, it's falling apart opening it. I can't get my matches to strike, so I'll have to use a lighter. I got my work cut out for me, so let me share with you my tips. The first thing I'm going to do is go cut up a lot of kindling. There's three types of fuel for a fire. We have our tinder, our kindling, and our sustaining fuel. Your tinder, that's stuff that you can light with a match. It starts easy, it's easy to catch flame. Your kindling, that's something that you can't just hold a match to and get it to light. But the kindling is a little bit bigger stuff, like finger thickness bits of wood, that kind of thing. Then you have your sustaining fuel, and your sustaining fuel, that's just your larger pieces of wood that are going to sit and burn for a while. We have to start with our tiny tinder, then we move up to our kindling wood. Smaller pieces split up a lot so that they have a lot of surface area of the dry inner wood to catch flame. And then we have our sustaining fuel. I'm going to start by taking these small rounds and I'm going to cut them down half size. That's just a standard piece of firewood, cut them down half size. That one isn't going to want to split. That one will split. Alright, that's kindling, about that size there. It's approximately finger thickness, and I need a lot of it. Missed. Alright, I got myself a nice little box of kindling here, nice little bucket. Next thing I got to do is make some tinder. Now you can use paper, you can use cardboard, dry leaves if you have them, anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and just use wood, and here's how we do it. Take a nice little piece, I'm going to anchor it down here, and just going to carve into it with a knife or a hatchet or a machete. And get a lot of fuzzy bits going on that. Known as a fuzz stick or a feather stick. A fuzz stick. Okay, now let's light this fire. Now I'm going to start with a few pieces of kindling wood on the bottom, just kind of give it a little bit of a lift up off the ground. Next is my tinder. I'm just going to set that right on top here of that kindling wood, so it's kind of lifted up. These fuzz sticks work best if I place them kind of in this position versus sitting up like that. Light them down here, the flame travels up. It helps that way. And a little bit more tinder. Alright, let's get a little more in there. This time my tinder is just a little bit bigger. Long skinny pieces here, just a little bit bigger than what I initially started with. Edit that. Get more tinder in here. Just stacking it on loosely, but more or less straight, and more or less in a compact pile. Now the most important part here is I'm going to go ahead and make a little access down here at the bottom, kind of lift everything up, because you got to light it from the bottom so that that heat and that flame draws up through the rest of the wood. Alrighty, I've got to open that flute. Should have opened it a few minutes ago. And I'm going to arrange wood, some of this other kindling pieces, right on top of what's burning. Right where that flame is. Just going to kind of move some over and stack it on top. Once I get this fire going just a little bit, I got to go ahead and close this door slightly. Enough that the smoke isn't going to come out here. And it's going to draw the heat upward out the chimney. And it's going to start feeding oxygen into that fire properly. Okay. And I'm going to put a little more wood on it now. When you do fire up a wood stove with wet wood, it takes a long time to get going. It's not going to burn very hot for a long time. And it's a lot of smoke being produced in there. It's not burning clean. So you want to watch it, and you want to try and run the stove as hot as you can during that period, because whenever you're running a colder fire, damp wood, it's going to build up a lot more creosote, and that can be a problem. Just keep an eye on it. When you're running a stove with damp wood, you got to put a lot smaller pieces in, at least at first, to get the stove hot enough to dry everything out good. So the biggest wood that I'm going to be putting in for a while is about that big round. And in fact, I'm going to split these in half a little bit. These ones up here that are just a bit shorter. I'm going to split these in half so that they catch easier. And they're going to produce a lot less smoke that way. And it's going to produce it's going to burn better, give me a hotter fire. More kindling. And now I'm going to be putting some of the bigger split stuff in, and I'm stacking it more around the edges because it's going to take some time for this to start drying out. A little more kindling, some of the bigger stuff. I'm going to fill it up about halfway, then I'm going to leave it, and in about an hour I'll put more wood in. Wood is getting a little warm. Now, if the wood's still running pretty wet, the stove's just burning slow yet, I'm going to leave this not quite torqued down tight. I'm going to leave it a little bit loose. So leave the door just a little bit open so that it gets more air in there, and it's going to run a little bit hotter that way. My very best tips for starting a fire in your stove: any of these rounds, if you just split them in half, they catch fire so much easier. The moisture that's held by that bark can be quite significant, and it takes a lot longer to get them to catch. If you split them open, they start a lot easier and they'll burn hotter. If your wood's wet, split the pieces all smaller. You're going to need a lot more tinder and kindling to really get a good fire going, a good fire started in this really damp, wet weather that we're having. It's still running a little on the cool side, but I got my wood stack next to the stove here, and I'll actually set a few pieces up here just so they're closer. I'm going to monitor the temperature so it doesn't get too hot, but while I'm in here, I'll have a couple pieces sitting up here, and they're going to dry out nice and quick, and they'll be the next fuel that goes in. Well, there you have it. Starting to fire up in your wood stove, and you don't need any of those expensive fire starting logs or fire starting sticks that they try to sell you down at the hardware stores. Just wood, hatchet, axe, machete, any of those works fine. Well, I've got to go. There's chores awaiting, so I'll catch you later. Bye now.